So yeah, I thought I would do a follow-up video on my MSX. So yeah, had some fun and games with this machine for sure. Unfortunately, in trying to create a switch to disable the cartridge port and sort of to try and maybe use the switch on the front here, I broke the keyboard membrane. So first of all, it looked like I'd teared a membrane, part of the membrane, should I say, and that was causing the down key to not work. And then after sort of taking it out and having a look at it closer, I soon realised that all the keys were starting to deteriorate. So definitely there was a rip in the membrane, which I fixed. But in the process of fixing this one, I kind of had to split things apart and whatever, and I guess that and the act of taking the membrane in and out and trying to repair and understand what was wrong. Yeah, I broke several of the traces. So yeah, pretty ugly kind of solution was to use copper tape to fix the membrane connections. And yeah, so the issue with copper tape, two different types of copper tape, one's conductive, one's not. The conductive one, the adhesive or the glue that's on the back of the copper tape is conductive, but I sort of read around the place, people repairing membranes for other computers, including the MSX, that adhesive loses conductivity over time, particularly if it's stretched or going around corners and that kind of thing, around an edge of a membrane, for instance. Over time, it does deteriorate, and I'm trying to look for something that's a bit more of a permanent solution. So instead of using the conductive copper tape, I use the non-conductive copper tape. The problem with that then is, how do you connect it to the trace? And so in the end, what I sort of figured out was that I could take the copper tape, I could sort of fold it in underneath itself and then lay that bit onto the trace, and then using some sort of masking tape to kind of keep it on that part of the membrane. Now that works. The issue really is that the membrane itself, in particular the part that goes into the board, it goes around a curve for one. It sort of goes around a curve and comes back on itself. So the membrane that's currently in the computer, it's actually plugged in to the motherboard this way. It's actually about here somewhere. And so the membrane goes up and then flips back on itself and comes all the way out over to here. And then, yeah, so anyway, with that bending, keeping that copper tape sort of sealed on the trace is not particularly easy. As I said, I've applied some masking tape for now. I'm not sure if masking tape's really a long-term solution. So I really kind of have to think about, I'm going to revisit this keyboard membrane in a couple of years. Like, how long does that masking tape last? How long is it going to keep that sealed copper tape connected to that trace, like sealed it up? How long is it going to last? I don't know yet. But the ability to buy a new membrane for these machines is not easy. I've got in touch with the person that does do them. It's known in the MSX community for producing new membranes to these machines. I did actually hear a response back from him today. I mentioned that I had one of the AWWSXs. He kind of responded, yes, I've got membranes for the Panasonic MSX2 Plus only. Now, there are a couple of different Panasonic MSX2 Pluses, so I'm not sure if that means that he has one available for this. I've kind of posted back to him to ask that question. I suspect he does not have another membrane for this exact model. There are, as I said, other models of the Panasonic, and in particular there's some that don't have the kanji character sets. So I really don't think I'm gonna find one that's gonna be compatible with this membrane. With this keyboard. A membrane that he can print, or he has printed, that will work with this. I don't think he's got that. The other issue is that he needs to sort of sell in bulk by the sounds of it. So I've asked him why, but he said like a minimum of 3 membranes to purchase. So a membranes cost about $30 US. So what we're looking at $90 US to kind of get one membrane. Now, you know, and that's only if he's got 3 of these ones, which I'm kind of doubting he does. So really the only option I've got is to repair and fix the membrane that I've got for the time being. Hopefully, like I said, the masking tape and the copper tape kind of connecting where the breakage and where the erosion of the trace has occurred, hopefully that lasts a little while. Perhaps what I won't do is seal this all up. Maybe I'll just kind of leave it like this for a little bit, just to kind of get a feel for how resilient that masking tape is. Maybe it'll last a year, maybe it'll last 2 years, who knows. So yeah, it's a real roller coaster of emotions. You can imagine how upset I was when I realised I'd broken the keyboard membrane, and kind of come to the conclusion pretty quickly that getting a replacement for it would be near impossible. Yeah, this is the fun and games of these old computers. That's what you get into when you get into it, into purchasing for them and purchasing them. There's always a chance that something goes wrong. There's always a chance that it breaks down, and that you have to repair and kind of be prepared to look after them. Yeah. Anyway, so as I said, I've really literally just been able to repair with the copper traces. I had a lot of issues with that, in terms of getting, you know, all of the copper traces to work. You know, there were at least, I think there was at least 9 of the traces damaged, at least 9. And I think that was because, as I said, because it does this whole kind of flipping back onto itself, I had flexed it enough that it had broken the traces right at the corner, right at the edge. So not only was there a tear, there was a breaking of the traces. So I've only really just kind of got it all working again now. So I mean, I guess what we'll do is we'll show that first. Take the disk out of here. So we'll just boot into DOS. Yeah, sorry, there we go. So yeah, yep. Yep, all good. So, and you know, your F1s, your F2s, F3, F4, F5, F stop, clear screen, clear home, I guess, shift clear, yep, clear screen, select, insert, delete, yep. So yeah, the down key was the original key that kind of went, so you can see that, you know, all my cursor keys are now working, thank goodness for that, because, you know, that's probably one of the main things is that, you know, if I do have a game that, you know, I can't use this pad on because I don't have the 2 buttons, I only use these cursor keys, and yeah, I need to be able to press all the different cursor keys. The other thing that I ran into with the copper traces, the copper tape to fix up the traces, was that sometimes the actual copper track was a little bit too thick, and so when it was plugging into the motherboard of the computer, I think it was touching multiple pins, and so therefore what would happen is you press a key and it would double click. It would be like two keys come out like that, but you know, we need to be able to do one key. It wouldn't have been too big a deal, except I did notice that sometimes it would actually do that with the up and down keys. So you know, I would press up and it would be pressing up and down at the same time, so it would instantaneously go up and down, so it would just stay still. You'd hear it click. You know, you can hear there's like a click sound when you press a key in MSX Basic, but yeah, it wasn't working. So yeah, so that's sort of where I've been playing around with this MSX with the keyboard. Really not much fun. You can imagine how upset I was. All right, well let's test out the cartridge switcher that I've installed. So I put this Spaceman biohack that I've got, and the trick is to put it. I've got the cartridge slot. I've got the cartridge in the slot. In fact, you actually saw before that it didn't boot the cartridge. So if we put this into firmware mode, so this is firmware enabled, we turn on the machine. You'll see it boots the cart. So that's booting Gradius 2. Yep, and that's what we kind of expect. And you know, game obviously works perfectly. And yay, I can use my cursor keys and it works fine. And awesome. Okay, so now if we switch the firmware off and we have the cartridge in slot 2, we turn on the machine, it will not boot the cartridge, which is what we want. And you can see that it's going into, first of all, incorrect display mode, but that's okay. I've seen that problem in the last video I did on the MSX. And so if we turn this on, like so, now that the game has booted, if we get into the game, we have SCC audio. Which is great. Bit of a safe spot here, isn't it? Indeed. But yeah, you can see that that switch works. You can hear if I turn off the cart, it does not like it. If I turn it back on again, once the game restarts back at that next life, it sort of comes back to life again and works properly. So yeah, and of course, you know, that doesn't affect the first cartridge slot. So if I take the cart out and I put it into slot 1, not really working very well because I've got the case still off partially. I don't know if that's in. Let's see. so that's in. But yeah, you can see like the car that's in firmware off mode, and the cart booted. And if I switch it to firmware off and I put the card in to slot 1, it should still boot too. Yeah. So that mod only affects port 2, slot 2, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted. So yeah, I mean, my recommendations with respect to modifying and kind of changing these machines around, be very, very, very careful. You know, you're gonna have to take the motherboard out to, you know, do the modification for the RAM upgrade. If you are going to do that, be super, super careful with the keyboard. You know, I was trying to be really careful with it, but look, there's not much you can do about it. Let's see if I can't get the cover off and I'll show you what I mean. So, oh yeah, so this is the mod I've made for the cart disable. So there is that is resistor. I can't remember, was it 61? Yeah, resistor 61. And basically what I did was I removed that resistor, and yep, again, pulled a pad, so that wasn't much fun. So that, yeah, again, being really careful, but still, these things are really old. No matter what you do, you're going to run the risk of destroying traces and pads. And that happened here, again, unfortunately. I've connected that to the correct positioning on that switch. But the other thing that I needed to do, I removed that resistor. I put another resistor, a pull-up resistor from on the back of the motherboard, from pin, I can't remember which pin it was, but it was a +5 volt going into the cart slot. That pin I then connected to the SLT SL, or the slot select pin, which is where resistor 61 comes out. Yeah, and I think the ordering or the way that these wires are put on does still matter. So, you know, I still need to have the brown wire attached to that point and the purple on this side. Yeah, you'll see that I've labeled the disk drive cable there. Yeah, but if I show you maybe how this how the keyboard works. Let me take out this one. Oh gosh. So yeah, you can see that this is my little bit of circuit here. Yeah, and you can see more masking tape. But yeah, I haven't screwed down the motherboard yet or anything like that, and I don't know if I will just yet. Just give it maybe a little bit of time, make sure that the keyboard doesn't go stupid. But here we can see how this keyboard works. You'll see again lots of masking tape going on here. I've put some plastic on the back of the membrane to kind of reinforce it a bit, but yeah, you can see like when you want to get to the keyboard, you have to flip it up like this. There's no like hinges or anything like that. You just got to know to flip it up like this, and then you got to reach your finger around and kind of pull out the connector there. So you can kind of see like there's not much of a gap there between there and the disk drive. It's pretty easy to tear this thing, and it's even harder when the lid is on. So when this is actually attached, you run into a lot of troubles with trying to actually just get the keyboard up like this. And you can imagine, like, you know, if you've got this attached and you're just wanting to get the keyboard up, you have to kind of twist it around, and that's going to then lead to you pulling on that membrane there. It's not a particularly great design at all, but it is what it is. I don't quite understand it. I don't think there's anything you can do with these membrane keyboard kind of things. I think this is the way it goes. And you know, like even modern keyboards, even there's still some modern keyboards that you'll see that you can buy that are going to have exactly the same issue. You can see there, like it folds in on itself and then goes in the board. So yeah, lots of ways that it can get wrecked, and you factor into the equation that this machine was made in the 80s. You know, it's pretty old plastic. It's pretty old transparent plastic. Plastic is going to last a long time, but the stuff that's on it, the traces themselves, not so much. And yeah, just the act of pulling it in and out all this time and flexing it like this, and then having trouble to plug it back in and then flip it back on itself like that. You know, there's a real good chance you can break the membrane, and yeah, I'm proof that happened. The fact that you can purchase and buy replacement membranes shows you that, you know, these membranes don't last. You know, at least there wasn't any rot, any kind of rust. I think rust can get into them. You know, if you get moisture, if water gets into the keys and then into the between the membrane surfaces, it can cause corrosion of the traces, and then, you know, you're going to have to do more work to repair traces. But, you know, luckily mine, or luckily or unluckily, depending on how you look at it, you know, the traces that I was dealing with were kind of in the bend. So I mean, I can probably show you a little bit of what that looks like. Let's, again, like you can see how easy it is to really stretch and move this thing around in such ways that it shouldn't be. Here we go. This is me trying to take out this part of the membrane, and you can see here's the repair work that I've done here. Now it looks a lot worse than what it actually is. It's because I've kind of got, you know, additional tape put there, but you can see like it's bending and flexing in ways that really it shouldn't be. I've had to remove the surface. There's like you can see that there's sort of a bit of a green tinge to it. That's because there's this bit is thicker than the actual membrane itself. So this thicker part here is actually, it's double coated. And of course that meant that, you know, if I broke a part of this trace up in here, for instance, underneath the green stuff, I had to peel that green stuff back, and so you can see that's what I've got here. This is actually part of that trace, part of that membrane's back cover. It's the double coating, and underneath it there's a sticky green like glue. So to get to the traces, you've actually got to like got to strip back that extra coating there, that extra piece of plastic, but then you've got to rub back the glue as well to reveal the track. So as I mentioned before, like you might be able to see in there that there's like, you know, little copper strips, and this is where I've actually cut out of the copper tape that I've got came in 5mm thickness, and I've kind of cut out little tracks. And as I mentioned, you know, if these are too thick, then there's a chance that it's going to touch one of the other pins as it's going in the motherboard here. So yeah, not great. really fiddly, really yuck. So yeah, anyway, so if I put this back in, I'll try and straighten this up a little bit so we can get it back in nice and easily. This one here has got a nice solid back to it, so I don't know, this one I didn't have any issues with. It was just the first one, the first slot. So now you can see just flipping it back over like that. Disgusting. So yeah, every time you go doing something like that, you run the risk Let's just check to see if I haven't broken it any further. It's going to go, in theory, it'll go into the BIOS, into the firmware, because this part isn't attached. As soon as you detach the MSX, the top part, it will think that it must be an active signal low or something like that. So yeah, we boot into the BIOS firmware thing. Let's head back out. Let's see if we've got fully working keys. I bet wouldn't be surprised if I don't. Oh, actually, let's exit out of that first. Let's go back to DOS. At least my RAM upgrade worked. RAM upgrade was probably what I thought was going to be the hardest part of modding this machine, and it has not ended up being the hardest part at all. So let's just jump back to DOS. All right. Yes. I mean, if it's like, you know, if it's stable enough for me to be sort of playing around with the keyboard and that kind of thing enough, I guess that means that the connection between the copper tape and the trace is working, and I just hope that it keeps on working. But yeah, it is actually all good. All the cursor keys working as expected. All the number keys. Perfect. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's enough for now. I'm gonna finally get back to playing some MSX stuff, and you know, now that I've got a working keyboard again, I'll probably want to try out some RPGs, you know, your Snatcher in particular, because, you know, Snatcher works with the SEC card. So, you know, there's also things like SD Snatcher, which the Super Deformed Snatcher, which I would love to give a bit of a try. Fully working disk drive, SEC, and a fully working keyboard. I can do that. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.